Hi there, I'm Mark Schaus. I'm the host of the Russian Rulers History Podcast. And today I'd like to tell my listeners and now viewers a little bit about why I'm interested in Russian history and some of the resources I use to create the Russian History Podcast. My initial interest in Russian history comes from my heritage. I'm part Russian on my mother's side, the Demyanovs, who were part of the Russian Admiralty, and also my father, who was really fascinated with history. He used to always recant these stories about historical events when I was a child. Uh, we used to go on walks with the dogs, and he would tell me about all this great stuff that he had learned from his father, and in school, and his history of Russia in Russian and German. He converted over to Russian Orthodoxy when he met my mother back in the 40s. They married right after the end of World War II in 1945. And so I was fascinated by my heritage. I wanted to know more about it. So when I got my opportunity in college, I was able to take Russian history with one of the great Russian history professors of all time, Dr. Paul Avrich. That's Avrich. Unfortunately, Dr. Avrich passed away a number of years ago. He was a great professor. He got you so interested in the class. I mean, it was always completely booked. You had to know somebody to get into that class. Thankfully, I did know someone at Queens College in New York who was able to get me in. I took a full year with him, and then I took his course on anarchism, which had a lot of Russians in it. And this is not the bomb-throwing, knife-wielding, shoot 'em up kind of people who tried to disrupt the world. These were very peaceful people. He taught us that many of them cared more about, not harming anyone, doing good for mankind than we normally think of them. From there, I wanted to become a Russian history professor. Fortunately, Dr. Avrich pointed out that my Russian, which he called Kuchny Ruski, or kitchen Russian, was woefully inadequate for me in order to go to become a professor in the subject. So that went to the wayside. And then podcasting came about. And I thought, maybe, just maybe I can do something here and show people my love of Russian history. I know I stumble a little bit around, with some of the words, and you have to forgive me for that. But it is a vast subject. It's almost greater than I thought it would be when I first started on this on April 30th, when I did my first podcast. Now here we are in September, and we have over 22,000 subscribers. Thanks, everybody. So now I want to share with you what books I think you might be interested in if you want to delve further into Russian history. Some of the ones that I use in order to prepare for the podcast. First one I'm going to tell you about is very aptly named Russia. It's Russia, the Once and Future Empire from Prehistory to Putin by Philip Longworth. Nice book, well written, gives good information about it. It's not very detailed, but it gives you a nice storyline about what's going on in Russia during the whole breadth of its existence. Second, easier book called Czars. This is by James Duffy and Vincent Ricci. It's Russia's rulers for over 1,000 years. This really does look basically like I do at the rulers themselves. Again, very simple. Some of the information is a little bit having a hard time backing up all of it. I mean, some of the details I think are a little shaky. On the whole, it's a good book. I highly recommend it. It's a good read. And you might notice the Czars. There's two ways of spelling it, Tsars or Czars. Both of them are acceptable. I prefer Tsars, the TS, because I think that's more in line with what the pronunciation of it is in Russian. Another one, which is pretty extensive, but not very rich in the early years, pre-Peter the Great, and this is Russia and the Russians, a history by Jeffrey Hosking. Another good book, as you can see, pretty substantial, as most good books are going to be about Russia. This is not a short story country. This is even more detailed than the United States. It was around a lot longer, so you're going to find these books are going to be much more stout. Of course, I was doing Ivan the Terrible just now. I'm going to do the last one this Friday, and so I might as well tell you about some of the books I've used on Ivan the Terrible. Great name, Ivan the Terrible. This one is by Andrei Pavlov and Maureen Perry. It's more of a detailed, it's part of a scholar's Profiles in Power book. This is a scholarly piece of work. It's a lot more what you would find in kind of history classes. It's not much of storytelling. So it gives you lots of facts and dates and information there. The next one I used is Ivan the Terrible. See his theme here in their titles. This is by Isabella de Madariaga. Pretty decent book, as you can tell. Ivan had a pretty long and rich life. We have a lot of detail about Ivan. Has some good pictures in it. About Ivan. This is from the movie Ivan the Terrible, and some of the other people and players that were in there. So nice one to pick up. Not my favorite. It's not the easiest read. I prefer this next one, Ivan the Terrible. But this one is by Robert Payne and Nikita Romanov. Yes, one of the Romanovs, cousin of Nicholas II, the last Russian Tsar. This is an excellent one. As you can see, I have my little sticky things up here, and I do this when I want to find something that I'm really excited about, and I see some good information that I want to share with the listeners. So excellent book on Ivan the Terrible, my favorite of all. Next, there's a few other ones that I use. One, you can tell, has been around my home for a long time, The Icon and the Axe. It was given to me by a friend in the Russian Orthodox Church when I was a teenager. It's very extensive. It is an older book. It's from the 60s. I still, go to it every once in a while. Not what I'd call an easy read, but it's pretty stout as well. But the one book I would recommend if you really, really want to know Russian history, probably the best of all, is by Nicholas Ryazanovsky and Mark Steinberg. It's now in its 7th edition. It's called The History of Russia. Professor Ryazanovsky is one of the leading men in Russian history and the knowledge of it and teaching of it. This was one of our books, mind you, not the 7th edition, but probably about the 2nd or 3rd edition, when I was at Queen's College back in the 70s, taking Russian history from Dr. Average. This is the definitive book. It not only tells you about the rulers and the people up high, the boyars, the common people, the religion, the lifestyles, what was going on in their society and culture, the effects of the invasions of the Mongols. Really rich on finding out who the Russian people really are and were. So this one, highly recommended. I'd buy them used. Yeah, they might have a couple markings in them, but you save a lot of money. I'm going to be hopefully posting it up on my sites as to how you can link in and get these books. One I use to find out more about what the people were thinking at the time and saying is this one, which is Reinterpreting Russian History. It's edited by Daniel Kaiser and Gary Marker, and it has the stories as written, chronicles, like we have the last will and testament of a 14th century individual in Russia. We have songs, we have some of the icons and what they look like in the Russian churches, talking about this political structure through the words of the people that were there at the time. It's important to see, we look back at history and we color it with what our experiences are. What I like to do is color it with their experiences, what was going on back then. I'm probably not perfect at it, but I try my best. And this is one of the books that I really recommend if you want to find out their point of view. And also some people from Europe who came to visit, say, the courts of Ivan the Great and the Terrible. They're having the writings there. And finally, I have the Rutledge Atlas of Russian History. If you want to see where the maps are, where the territories are, where's Pskov and Tver and Novgorod, Nizhny Novgorod, Moscow? Where did the Mongols come from? Where were the Crimean Tatars? Where was Astrakhan and Kazan? You can see it in this book. It gives you great pictures and the routes taken, the Northern Sea routes. We have here the advance of the Red Army in the 40s and when they were fighting the Nazis. So it's a nice little book to kind of put a little reality into what we're all talking about. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to do more of these video podcasts once we start getting into Peter the Great, Catherine the Great, the Romanovs, and more of the resources that I'm going to use in those future podcasts. So I hope you enjoyed it. And so long, and до свидания, и спасибо большое.